Arab peoples have been divided according to lineage into three groups: Parish Arabs, the Pure Arabs, and the Arabized Arabs. Parish Arabs is the ancient Arabs of whose history little is known and of whom consist of Ad, Thamud, Tasum, Jadis, and and others. Pure Arabs, or also known as Qahtanian Arabs, originated from the progeny of Ya'rub bin Yashrib bin Qahtan. The Arabized Arabs originated from the progeny of Ismail alayhi salam and were also called the Adnanian Arabs. The Pure Arabs originally lived in Yemen and comprised many tribes, two of which very famous, which is Himyar and Kahlan. Himyar, the most famous of whose ancestors were Zayd al-Jumhur, Quda'ah, and Sakasik. And Kahlan, the most famous of whose ancestors were Hamdan, Anmar, Da'i, Mudij, Kindah, Lakham, Judam, Aus, Khazraj, and the descendants of Jaffna, the kings of ancient Syria. The Kahlan tribes emigrated from Yemen to dwell in different parts of the Arabian Peninsula prior to the Great Flood. They migrated due to the failure of trade under the Roman pressure and control of both sea and land trade routes, following the Roman occupation of Egypt and Syria. Naturally enough, the competition between Kahlan and Himyar led to the evacuation of the former and the settlement of the latter in Yemen. So the emigrating tribes of Kahlan can be divided into four groups, which is Al-Ads, Lakham and Judam, Banu Ta'i, and Kindah. So Al-Ads wandered in Yemen and sent pioneers under the leadership of Imran bin Amir Muzayqiya, and they finally headed up to the north and east. And the details of the emigration can be summed up as follows. Tha'labah bin Amr left his tribe for Hijaz, and he dwelt between Tha'labiyah and Dhikar. When he gained power, he headed up for Medina and he stayed there. And of his descendants were Aus and Khazraj, which is the sons of Haritha bin Tha'labah. So the second one is Haritha bin Amr, also known as Khuza'ah, and he wandered in Hijaz and came to Mar al-Zahran, and he later conquered the Haram and he settled in Makkah. After having driven away its people, which is a tribe of Jurhum, was there at the time. And the third one is Imran bin Amr and his family. They went to Oman, where they established a tribe of Ast, and whose offsprings inhabited Tihama and were known as Ast of Shanu'ah. And the fourth one is Jaffna bin Amir and his family. They headed for Syria and they settled there and initiated the kingdom of Ghassan, also named after a spring of water in Hijaz, where they stopped on their way to Syria itself. So besides Al-Asd, another three tribes that emigrated is Lakham and Judam. So from them was Nasr bin Rabi'ah, which is the founder of Manadirah, kings of Hira. And the third one is Banu Ta'i. So they emigrated northwards to settle between Aja and Salma mountains, which thereafter named the Ta'i mountains. And the fourth one is Kindah. So they dwelt in Bahrain, but then they were expelled to Hadramaut and Najd. They had no power base, so they established an important rulership for a while, but it doesn't last for long, and soon the whole tribe faded away. There is, however, one tribe of Himyar that also emigrated and left Yemen. They dwelt in Samawah Desert on the borders of Iraq. They are known as Quda'ah. The Arabized Arabs go back to ancestry to their great-grandfather Ibrahim from a town called Ar near Kufa on the west bank of Euphrates in Iraq. It is known that Ibrahim a.s. left Ar for Haran, and then he went to Palestine, which he made the headquarters for his message, and he traveled all over the area to spread his message. He also went to Egypt, and the Pharaoh tried to do evil to his wife Sarah, but Allah saved her, and the Pharaoh wicked scheme recoiled on him. So he thus came to realize a strong attachment to Allah, and in acknowledgement of this, the Pharaoh rendered his daughter Hajar at Sarah's service. Sarah then gave Hajar to Ibrahim a.s. as a wife, and Ibrahim a.s. returned to Palestine, where Hajar gave birth to Ismail a.s. Sarah later became jealous of Hajar and forced Ibrahim a.s. to send Hajar and her baby away to an uncultivated valley in Hijaz by the sacred house, exposed to floods from the north and the south. So he chose for them a place under a lofty tree which under the upper side of the masjid in Mecca, where there were neither people nor water, and went back to Palestine, leaving the leather case with some dates and vessels of water with his wife and infant. So before long they ran out of both food and water. So this is where the story of Zamzam spring is well known to everybody. So another Yemeni tribe, which is Jurhum II, came and lived in Mecca with Hajar's permission, after having lived in the valleys around Mecca for years. Ibrahim a.s. used to go to Mecca from time to time to see his wife and son. The number of these journeys is still unknown, but dependable historical references have mentioned 4 instances. It is mentioned in the Genesis that Ismail a.s. was 13 years older than his brother Ishaq. The sequence of events in the story of sacrifice of Ismail a.s. shows that it occurred before Ishaq's birth, and that Allah's promise to give Ibrahim a.s. another son, Ishaq, came after the narration of the whole story. So the story speaks of at least one journey before Ismail a.s. became a young man. Al-Bukhari, on the authority of Ibn Abbas, reported the other 3 journeys, a summary of which goes as follows. So after Ismail a.s. became a young man, having learned Arabic from the tribe of Jurhum, who had great admiration and affection for him, and gave him one of their women as a wife. So his mother died. Desiring to see his wife and son again, Ibrahim a.s. came to Mecca after Ismail's marriage, but he did not find him at home. So he asked Ismail's wife about her husband and how they were doing. She complained of poverty, so he asked her to tell Ismail a.s. to change his doorstep. Ismail a.s. understood the message, divorced his wife, and got married again. According to the most common narration, he married the daughter of Mudad bin Amir, which is the chief of Jurhum tribe. So once more, Ibrahim a.s. came to see his son, but did not find him at home. So he asked his new wife the same question, upon which she thanked Allah. So Ibrahim a.s. asked her to tell Ismail a.s. to keep his doorstep, and went back to Palestine. A third time, Ibrahim a.s. came to Mecca to find Ismail a.s. sharpening an arrow under a lofty tree near Zamzam. The meeting, after a very long journey of separation, was very touching for a father so affectionate and a son so dutiful and righteous. So this time, father and son built Al-Kaaba and raised its pillars. And in compliance with Allah's commandment, Ibrahim a.s. called people to perform pilgrimage to it. So now back to Ismail a.s. So Ismail had 12 sons from the daughter of Mudad. So the following are the list of his 12 sons. Later on, these tribes spread all over and even outside the peninsula, after which their offsprings became untraceable except for these 2, Nabat and Qidar. So the Nabateans established a civilization in the north of Hijaz, and they made Petra their capital. So nobody dared to challenge their authority until the Romans managed to vanquish the kingdom later. The next one is the descendants of Qidar, which is the son of Ismail a.s., multiplied in number and lived in Mecca for a long time. From then issued Adnan and his son Ma'at, to whom Adnanian Arabs trace the ancestry. So Adnan is the 21st grandfather in the series of the prophetic ancestry. Nizar, Ma'at's only son, had 4 sons who branched out into 4 great tribes, which is Iyad, Anmar, Rabi'ah, and Mudar. So the last two branched into several tribes. Rabi'ah fathered Asad, Nazah, Abdul Qais, and Wail's two sons, which is Bakr and Taghlib, and Hanifah and many others. Mudar tribes branched out into two great divisions, Qais Ailan bin Mudar and the tribes of Ilyas bin Mudar. From Qais Ailan came Banu Sulaim, Banu Hawazin, and Banu Ghatafan, of whom descended Abs, Dubyan, Ashja, and Ghani bin Asur. From Ilyas bin Mudar came Tamim bin Murrah, Hudail bin Budika, Banu Asad bin Khuzaimah, and the tribe of Kinanah bin Khuzaimah, of whom the Quraysh descendants of Fihr bin Malik bin An-Nadir bin Kinanah came from. So various tribes came from the Quraysh, and the most famous of whom were these. So the tribes of Qusay bin Kilab, consisting of Abdul Dar bin Qusay, Asad bin Abdul Uzza bin Qusay, and Abdul Manaf bin Qusay. There were four divisions of tribe of Abdul Manaf, which is Abdul Shams, Naufal, Muttalib, and Hashim. It is, however, from the family of Hashim that Allah selected the Prophet Muhammad bin Abdullah bin Abdul Muttalib bin Hashim from.